The narrative of the colonial masters has always been putting a skin darker than the shade in one box, especially in the Negro manner. People from Africa, Asia, Oceania have been subjected to a discourse in history that has been rather negative. In this video, I'll be investigating the black man who's not black, Melanesians in the regions of Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, who really caught my attention since I was younger. We'll delve into the history of where they supposedly came from, how they came to their own native land to being colonized. If you are wondering what is the term Melanesia, well, it is a region in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, including New Guinea and the Fiji Islands, stretching from the west to east. It covers the Arafura Sea and consists of the countries Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea. It also includes parts of Indonesia, New Caledonia, a French territory, and the Torres Strait Islands. The name Melanesia was first used in 1832 by French navigator Jules Dumont d'Urville, who also named Micronesia and Polynesia as main regions in the Pacific. The people living in Melanesia, known as Melanesians, come from various genetic backgrounds and ethnic groups. They have different cultural practices and languages, yet they share a long history of interaction and exchange. The name Melanesia comes from ancient Greek, a wording meaning islands of black people, referring to the dark skin of the people who live there. The earliest wave of human settlement in Melanesia dates back at least 33,000 years. During this time, New Guinea and Australia were linked by a land bridge, suggesting that the migration could have happened over 40,000 years ago, though more discoveries are needed to confirm these timelines with greater certainty. Linguists have studied changes in languages over time to map out when and where different language groups spread across the region. However, many languages in Oceania remain unstudied and unclassified, presenting an ongoing challenge. Geneticists have also been working to trace historical human migration by analyzing genetic connections between contemporary populations. Despite these efforts, a systemic sampling of genetic data has yet to be conducted, leaving some gaps in our understanding of the ancient movements. Around 4,000 years ago, the Lapita culture, known for its unique pottery, settled in the Bismarck archipelago. These early settlers spread to Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa, key areas in Polynesian history. Recent evidence has caused debates about whether the Lapita culture came to Fiji later with other seafaring migrants, about how quickly they moved from Southeast Asia through Melanesia to Polynesia. It's believed that the Marians were settled around 1500 BCE and the Marquesas as early as the 2nd century BCE, with Hawaiian settlements possibly dating to 300 CE. By the 9th century, the Society Islands were inhabited, highlighting the extensive migration patterns of Pacific peoples. When Europeans first arrived, Oceanian societies had already advanced with technologies fashioned from stone, bone, and shell materials. They cultivated a variety of tubers and tree fruits, primarily originating from Southeast Asia. Genetic studies have also shown that some of these cultivated plants were native to broader region, including New Guinea. One notable exception was the sweet potato, which had made its way from South America across much of Polynesia before European contact, though it had only marginally reached Melanesia. These societies also domesticated three main groups of animals: pigs, dogs, and chickens. Coastal inhabitants had developed sophisticated fishing techniques and demonstrated impressive skills as navigators. They had established well-developed navigation routes between nearby islands, which facilitated regular trade among different islands. However, certain skills were lost over time. For example, pottery ceased to be practiced in Samoa and the Marquesas shortly after initial settlement. The early 16th century marked the arrival of Europeans, initiating a period of significant change for the Pacific Islands. Initial contact came through passing explorers who left their marks on their local cultures and economies. By the late 18th century, the influence of more permanent visitors such as castaways, beachcombers, missionaries, and traders began to reshape the islands even further, introducing new elements and practices that will forever alter the course of the region's history. Delving deeper into science, it's worth investigating the genetics of our Melanesian brothers and sisters, comparing it to that of Africans, at least in my eyes. According to a research published by the Indian Journal of Fundamental and Applied Life Sciences from the Center for Infobiotechnology, its abstract reading, the Melanesians are assumed to be a relic population of the Pacific that probably made their way to Oceania shortly after the Out of Africa event. The toponymic, archaeological, craniometric, and Pan-African genomic evidence indicate that the Melanesians probably came to Oceania from Africa and Southeast Asia. Scientists examined ancient artifacts, skull, and genetic information from Africa, India, and Oceania to see if there's a genetic link between people from this region. They created a database using DNA from modern populations in these areas to compare genetic traits. By analyzing this data, they aimed to understand how these populations are related, and the results found from scientists based from the skull shapes and DNA supports the idea that people from Africa and the Dravidian regions moved to Oceania during the late Neolithic period. This migration went through mainland East Asia and Southeast Asia before reaching the Pacific Islands. Researchers including Reyes, Centeno, and others in 2014 have created models of possibly migration routes of Africa. They believe that the shape of skulls and genetic markers show that the Australo-Melanesian populations were among the early groups to spread out and settle in isolated areas. Although this is the view of Reyes, Centeno, and colleagues, there is no solid archaeological or genetic evidence to suggest that Melanesians are a relic or ancient population. They also did not recognize the differences in skull shapes between different groups such as Australians, Mongoloids, and Melanesians. These differences suggest that there were two separate migrations of black populations, one of Australians and another of Melanesians into the Pacific. Tsunehiko Hanihare in 2005 discussed the physical differences between these groups. Australian Aboriginals and Melanesians show distinct skull shapes and represent two different black populations. While it is likely that Australians are ancient populations from an early migration of Africa during the late Pleistocene, the evidence from skull shapes, archaeology, and place names suggests that the Melanesians' migration into Oceania happened more recently. In summary, skull and archaeological evidence suggests that early migrants to the Pacific had Australian characteristics, indicating they moved there early on. The Melanesians are not an ancient, unchanging population but share many genetic traits with Africans, such as specific mtDNA genes and Y chromosomes haplogroups. Place names in Africa, India, and Oceania show a spread of names from Africa across the Indian Ocean to the Pacific, which cannot be mere coincidence. Genetic links between Dravidians and Oceanians suggest Dravidian involvement in seafaring during the Lapita culture's expansion. Purach, in 2013, found Dravidian gene flow from India to Australia about 4,230 years ago, aligning with the Lapita migration. Around this time, mutuals and the dingo, a dog of Southeast Asian origin but resembling Indian dogs, appeared in the fossil record in Australia. In conclusion, the Lapita culture began in East and Southeast Asia, founded by Dravidian-speaking tribes. Yue and Cambodia share DNA, Y chromosomes, and similar place names in Melanesia and West Africa indicate a recent migration of Melanesians from Africa and East Asia into the Pacific. This is obviously paraphrased and simplified for better understanding. The research is linked in the description below. Now, with all that said, facts from science and all, what do the people themselves have to say about these claims? Are they black? Do they identify as black? So I found interesting takes on social media, that being Quora, and these were the takes of the people. And if you are of Melanesian descent and are watching this, please do tell me in the comments, what do people think about you? The question on the page asked, do Melanesians identify as black or as Pacific Islanders? Well, there were mixed answers in some way from both sides, and I will cite some examples from both angles. One said, yes, our skin color is what you'd call black. Melanesia means the islands of the black people. Melanin, Melanesia, so yeah, we are. Another said, it depends on what you mean by black, because the word is used differently by different cultures. In much of the world, it means dark skinned. In some of the world, it means dark skinned with coily hair. And in North America, it means specifically a person of some substantial sub-Saharan African descent. Whether they are darker or fair does not matter, because ironically in North America, black when used about people is an ethnic category, not a color. So by the American definition of the word, Melanesians are not black. No matter how dark-skinned or coily haired they may be, they are people of color or brown people, but they are not black because they are not of SSA descent. By other countries' definition, for example, Australia for sure, they are black. Melanesians do not get their phenotype from any close relatedness to sub-Saharan Africans. Sub-Saharan Africans are actually more genetically related to Europeans than they are to Melanesians. Skin-deep phenotypes can be misleading. Two distant, unrelated groups can easily evolve the same trait independently of each other. But as you've seen from the scientific research, there could be a correlation to Africa. Some of us look African, some of us look a bit like Australian Aboriginals, and some look like Southern Indians. At least that is the case here in Solomon Islands, and some of us are even darker than Africans, some blonde and fair. Because we bear some resemblance to Africans, people usually want to find out why. Maybe because there must be a link somewhere, but it is still to be made. We can relate to people of Papua New Guinea and the Aboriginals of Australia through culture, physical features and language, but any further than that is still just down to physical features. It will be like making comparisons between Indonesians and American Indians. They will also tell you that apart from physical similarities, there are no further distinct commonalities. And see, lastly, if you come to Solomon Islands and see us, you'll struggle to make any real conclusion to what this question is really trying to get at, which is resemblance. Well guys, this is just but a few healthy discussions that I found trying to understand the notion if the people from Melanesia are actually black, or rather are actually related from the African trope. As you have noticed, it is a very complex topic, rather notion, as there is a gap in history that we haven't fully filled. Even in the world at large, there is so much that we have yet to uncover on why and how we are who we are. And this is just but the beginning of trying to uncover a much larger narrative. Sometimes I wish I had the time machine to go back to all those years and truly see for myself how the world became so diverse. I mean, the notion is that we all come from one place, is it not? And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, stay curious and question everything.